Hey there. So this is Coach Angie, and I am a degree nutritionist. And what that means is I went to school for nutrition and got a degree in it. And I do coaching full time, and I also do personal training. I'm really big into fitness. And today I wanted to share my top 10 reasons why people get frustrated with their weight loss progress. So let's dig in. The first one I see all the time, and I coach hundreds of people. And one of them is they get impatient with the process of change. And so one thing I often remind them is that it's one thing, and everyone's different, right? So some people need a template. They need to know what to eat. They need a little bit a menu, meal plan. They need a strategy. And that's great. If you know that about yourself, I am a template person. I need a framework to work from, that I can just have an idea to start with, and then I, create my own path from that. So if you need a framework, if you need a little bit more guidance and structure, and you know that about yourself, that's great. And that gives you a little bit more of a targeted approach to your weight loss. But sometimes, people dive into something even with the framework, and they just don't know how to adjust it and change it to fit their lifestyle, to change it to fit their lives, So they get impatient with figuring that part out, right? And it takes time. So if you look at that as building a new habit. So if a baby is learning to walk, it takes a while for them to walk. They take a couple of steps, they stumble, and it takes time for them to build up not only the skill, but also the confidence to walk further and further. So it's the same thing when it comes to building a habit, and weight loss is structured a lot around your habits, around why you eat food, when you eat food, what you're eating, all of those things are changing, and we get frustrated with that process. So the first one I see all the time is just impatient. The second one is kind of twofold. So I see under eating a lot. So a lot of times I am helping people to feel more comfortable with eating closer to the calorie range that would be maybe better suited for their goals. And there's some talk around that as well, but just eating a little bit more. Some people are really used to eating very low calorie diets, but they've also found that that is not sustainable. So it's kind of this mindset where they're like, hey, I used to eat this number of calories and I lost weight, which is very true. You're going to lose weight for a very short period of time, and then your body's going to plateau. And so when they plateau, they're getting frustrated. And so part of my coaching is getting them to uncover the fear behind that, and getting them, helping them understand, what happens when you don't eat enough, especially if you're exercising, and then helping them to feel more comfortable with eating closer to their caloric budget or range. And then the other side of that, a lot of times I see a lot of under eating, and then I see a couple days of overeating. And so you have these two sides of the spectrum where I'm assuming that they're getting a lot of hunger signals, and those hunger signals are becoming kind of uncontrollable, so they overeat for a couple of days. So again, they're not seeing change, they're getting impatient, they don't know, they're just kind of not sure what to do. So a lot of the times it's helping them to become aware about their eating practices. So just seeing hey, I noticed I'm under eating, and then I noticed I'm overeating. What do you think is going on there? So we have a conversation around that and positive steps to move forward. Number 3, I see comparison. So I see, well, my friend did keto and lost a lot of weight, or I saw online this, or my husband is doing, paleo or whatever it is. And that is great. I know we get inspiration from all kinds of different people, and that can help drive motivation. And remember that your personal path is personal. So I don't necessarily discourage if you want to try keto, if you want to try other approaches to eating, definitely I encourage you to try it, see what you learn from it. I think there's things that we can learn from, everything that we experiment with. And there are some things that you'll say, hey, I really liked A, B, and C from keto, but these other things didn't really work for me. But I'm going to keep this part of the approach as a part of my personal, healthy lifestyle. So, but what I do try to discourage is looking at someone's journey and making it yours. And that's where you just kind of get off path. A lot of times what happens that I see someone that wants to try this and wants to try that, and they really want to experiment, which is fine. But again, it's also helping them understand, like, hey, you're experimenting, but your progress is gonna ebb and flow because you're trying different approaches. So also consider how long you want to experiment with that, so that you can truly, kind of like, a scientific experiment on yourself, truly have a good assessment of how that approach worked for you. So, think about your hypothesis. What do you hypothesize will happen by eating more of a ketogenic diet based on the information that you have? Try it out and learn from it, and then just think about what you want those next steps to be. Okay, number 4, unrealistic expectations. So when I usually meet with a new client, I'll say, well, what are your goals? And I'll say, well, I want to lose 50 pounds. It's March, right? So everyone's in the mindset of summer. I want to lose 50 pounds before my cruise in, I'm going to say July or whatever. So I do my little calculations in my head. I'm like, well, that seems kind of high based on what a healthy weight loss is. And a healthy weight loss is generally 1/2 pound to 2 pounds per week. And I usually also inform people, like, hey, 2 pounds per week is pretty aggressive. A lot of times when people that are aiming for a caloric deficit to create a 2 pound per week weight loss, that is a pretty significant deficit. And what I see that people run into is that they feel deprived or hungry all the time, and then they're not really hitting their goals because they're overeating. They're kind of going over target, stuff like that. So create more realistic expectations based on a caloric deficit that you can sustain for a period of time. So realistic expectations. Be real, be honest with yourself. Think about all the different things of your life. It's not just that you're losing weight, but how are you going to handle, like, going to a barbecue and there's barbecue and beans and potato salad and, whatever, like desserts and drinks and all of that. Let's say you're very social and you like to go out, you like to go to happy hours, you like to have real fine dinners, all of those things that are a part of your life. How are you going to navigate around those? Because that is going to be a part of your weight loss journey too. So be realistic. Number 5, focusing on the scale way too much. And I do see the scale as data. So let's say you hop on the scale. Let's say you went out last night, you had a couple drinks, y'all went to IHOP or whatever. You ordered some pancakes and some eggs and some bacon. So you had a high sodium food meal, you had carbs and all of that. Then the next morning you hop on the scale, you're like, what? Wait a minute. I just went out last night. It's just one night. Well, it's unlikely that you gained like fat in that short amount of time. Your body did store some from that meal, because that's just, the body is dynamic like that. But a lot of that is also water retention from the sodium, from the carbohydrates. Your body is pulling that water into the muscles and stuff like that. So the scale can be information. So you can think back, like, well, what would have made that scale adjust like that? So you're like, oh yeah, I went out, had a couple of drinks, had some bacon. All right, so I'm kind of retaining some water. It'll level off. So think about not putting too much weight in the scale, and don't put emotion into the scale. So it's information, and think about how you want to use that information to make another step forward or make adjustments. And look at other measures of success. So when I train my clients, we don't only just look at the scale, but we look at body composition, body fat percentage, muscle mass percentage. I do measurements. So I look at a holistic picture of how the body composition is changing. And then we also talk about non-scale victories. So that might be like, well, I'm able to walk farther or I have more energy, or I'm making, the choices around food that I want to make more consistently. When I go out to eat with my friends, I'm not tripped up or I'm not tempted to have 2 glasses of wine. I've learned to be satisfied with 1 glass of wine. So those are non-scale victories that you definitely want to celebrate and be proud of, because I feel like those are habits that are changing for the good, and your mind is forming these new habits. And when you are developing habits that are sustainable, it's going to positively impact your weight over time. So slower weight loss is what I promote, because you're also at the time forming habits that are long term and that will stick, that will help support your weight loss for a long, long time. Number 6, all or nothing mindset. So all or nothing mindset is like, I'm going to do this 30-day challenge, right? There's so many challenges, but you're going to do this challenge, right? You're going to go all in. So all or nothing. I'm going to go all in. And then halfway into the challenge, usually life happens, because, hey, it's life. And then you're like, I'm just going to give up. I just can't do it. So that's an example of all or nothing. So you're either going to give it your all or you're not going to do it. And so again, that mindset definitely can be a barrier to your goal, because you're not really progressing, or you just are constantly in this cycle of starting and stopping. So again, I support small changes over time. So if there's something that you want to do, even if it is a 30-day challenge, thinking about all of the barriers, all of the things that could get in the way. What do you want to get out of the challenge? Why is this challenge important to you? How is it going to support your overall goals? And your accountability system, because, when life happens, who are you going to call to help hold you accountable? Or, when you need that cheerleading system, who are you going to call when you need support? So number 7, I talked a lot about this already, but life. So life is always throwing curveballs. Sometimes in life, things are like easy. You're like, man, things are going awesome right now. And then sometimes things are just a little bit more of a challenge. So seeing those curveballs as opportunities to grow and learn and adapt and overcome, versus like, I just can't do it. And you know what? It's also okay to maintain. So if you're going through a season in life, and focusing on weight loss is just overwhelming, then focusing on maintaining might be something to consider. So usually what trips people up is transitions, life, whatever it is that just kind of gets you off course a bit. Number 8 is nutrition. So another thing that I take a look at, when I look at, what's going on in your life, we do some mindset work, I start to dig into the actual nutrition part of it as well. So yeah, there might be some opportunities to make some changes to what you're eating. So like if you are noticing that you are on the go a lot, whether it's because you have to bring your kids to this activity or that activity, or you have that kind of, work life where you're on the go all the time, it's easy to pick up those convenient foods. And sometimes those convenient foods are higher in fat and higher in sodium. And so once we notice that, we can work together on making changes that would be more suitable to your goals as well as your lifestyle. So we start looking at what is it, exactly that you're eating. How can we move the needle along by making some positive swaps here? Number 9. So again, we start digging a little bit deeper and we start looking at your physical activity, and not just necessarily exercising more, but in our world today, we're sedentary, and it's important to get up and move every so often and just not sit. So that could be housework, it could be sweeping, it could be mopping, it could be, going for a walk after your lunch or after your dinner. It could be getting on the floor and playing with your kids. Instead of sitting on the couch watching TV, sit on the floor and stretch and watch TV, or do some crunches, or do some glute bridges, or side leg lifts or something, or to have dance parties, put on music and just move a little bit more throughout the day. So we call that non-exercise activity thermogenesis, and thermogenesis is just how your body can get warm and, boost the metabolism by moving more often. So think about what you can do throughout the day to help you move more. So kind of, steps. If you have a watch that counts your steps, make a goal of how many steps you want to get in every day. And then the last is mindset, going back to that all or nothing. So consider what your mindset is, and if you're truly ready for change. So sometimes you get excited, or people get excited about making a change, but they're really truly not ready, or they haven't fully thought out the change that they want to make. So maybe they're ready to make a change with exercising more, but they're not ready to make a change with nutrition or making healthy swaps just yet. So, thinking about what do you feel like is a doable change that you feel comfortable with starting with, that doesn't feel overwhelming, so that you can remain motivated and excited about going on this journey and focusing on how to make small changes over time. So I hope you found these 10 steps or 10 things helpful for you to understand how to keep moving forward when you get a little bit frustrated in your journey. And remember, you're human, and kudos for you making the effort to prioritize your health and wellness in any way. Peace and God bless.